What's the dumbest thing you've ever seen tattooed on someone? Story 1. They had a tattoo of a compass and said, "I got it done, so it's always showing true north." I asked, "Wouldn't that change depending on what direction you're facing?" He said, "No, true north is always the same." I tried explaining what I meant and they couldn't understand. Story 2. My neighbor bought himself a tattoo kit for himself and offers free tattoos to his friends. He practices on himself, and he has zero artistic talent, so you can imagine the messed up crap he has on himself. His arms look like a 5-year-old has gone mental with their crayons on him. I just wish I could get some pictures of his creations. Story 3. When I worked at electronics boutique back in the 90s, there was this one redneck lady who would come in like once a month with a different redneck bow. And on her left arm, she had tattooed the names dudes with the previous one crossed out. And yep, each time she came in with a new dude, there was a new name. Story 4. There was this crazy girl I took a college class with. She looked like what you'd imagine a stereotypical chain-smoking biker chick would look like. One day she wore a sleeveless top, and I saw she had what I thought was Jack Sparrow tattooed across her shoulder blades. Weird, but I guess she's a big Pirates of the Caribbean fan. Few weeks later, she's wearing a strapless top, and I realized that the letters previously blocked by the straps were not what I'd assumed. She actually had Cocksparrer across her shoulder blades. Story 5. I knew a guy who lucked into $70K. Got pay up as knuckle tattoos, but had the up as a dollar sign that was also an up arrow in the middle of the S instead of just this dollar. So that symbol with an up arrowhead at the top. Everybody read it as pays up when he showed them, and he had to have the whole S covered. Now it says pay on 3 fingers and has an arrow sign almost as thick as his fucking finger. He had to move back in with his mom after 6 months. Story 6. My ex's family all went to Thailand for a family holiday and decided to get matching tattoos. They asked for the word family in Thai. They were all so excited until they got back, and a Thai friend of mine explained to them that it says handbag. Story 7. My youngest brother's girlfriend has her children's names tattooed on her. No issue with that. It's the fact that her youngest son has his name misspelled, Braden instead of Brandon. When I asked her about it, she said she had no idea how to spell her son's name. Just wow. Story 8. I guess this one is about me. I have 6 dicks tattooed on one leg and 3 different tattoos. I have 2 Danny DeVito tattoos. I have a photorealistic hot dog and a bun with mustard. I have a skull and crossbone, but it's a piece of pizza and chicken wings crossed behind it. I have Millpool on my wrist. I have a fake Jeffrey Dahmer quote on one arm. I don't care if you hate them or think them trashy. Not gonna fuck up my vibe. It's okay to get tattoos that are funny or have personal significance. Not everyone has to like what you like. Story 9. Guy I used to work with had the word nothing in Arabic. So when someone asked what it says, he would say nothing. It made him feel smart because he was answering them, but also it seemed like he didn't say what it said, so he replied with nothing. Story 10. I'm not sure the dumbest, but as far as giving me that wow factor for other reasons, a good friend who is now covered in jail-like tattoos only had a couple at the time. He got the obligatory spider's web on his elbow, which had a bucket of KFC caught in the web and bits of chicken suspended in the web. Story 11. My brother's wife has a tattoo that's just her and her friend playing with a tattoo gun they bought on eBay while drunk as teens. It looks about like a child's drawing of random lines. It's on her upper thigh so she can cover it up, but it looks terrible. Story 12. Someone got a Chinese symbol tattooed on their neck. It was supposed to be something profound like peace wisdom or something like that. Turns out they had idiot tattooed on their neck. They found out when a new friend who happened to be Chinese asked them why they had idiot tattooed on their neck. Story 13. Knew someone who had her parents' names and phone number tattooed on her shoulder because she had a habit of getting blackout drunk and losing her clothes. She wanted to be able to have someone at least call her parents if she was found. Story 14. I have a flame tattooed on the inside of my bicep. It sometimes peeks out if I move my arm away from my body a bit. If anyone asks, it's my concealed firearm. I also have "Don't Panic" on my back. Coincidentally, I had a panic attack and nearly passed out while getting it. Story 15. And Baful Kid Aga Magdul Godati and Latreas. May I go to the bathroom, please? It's a staple phrase for Irish people because it's how we had to ask to go to the loo in school. It's a national joke, but Americans will insist on tattooing it on them because they think they're Irish, but they don't get the joke and think it actually means "I love you." Story 16. The dumbest tattoo I've seen was actually on a friend of mine. He got absolutely plastered one night and woke up with a tattoo of a pickle wearing a sombrero on his lower back. He has no idea why he chose it or what it means. The kicker, it's not even a well-done tattoo. It looks like it was drawn by a child. He's too embarrassed to get it removed, so now he just avoids taking his shirt off at the beach. It's a hilarious story now, but it's a prime example of why you shouldn't make permanent decisions while drunk. Story 17. An ex-colleague of mine got a tattoo with his late brother's name in Chinese alphabet and a dragon coiling around it down his side. He doesn't read or understand Chinese. He doesn't realize we don't have an alphabet. He got it done in Thailand. Props to the artist, the dragon looked amazing. The Chinese characters, however, were upside down, mirror-imaged, and said, "Big fat pig boy," if they were written right. Story 18. I was in line for a roller coaster ride, and the rather large woman in front of me wearing a sundress had several questionable tattoos, but the one I most recall is the Beatles lyric, "I am the walrus," in script font on the upper back of her shoulder. Story 19. I knew a guy way back in the late 70s who had convinced a friend to do a pen and stick tattoo. Is that the right term? You know, no machine and done by an amateur? Well, it was supposed to be a full back tattoo of a couple doing the deed, with a viewpoint from the foot of the bed, so her legs up in a big V shape and all the activity in full view. The friend messed up about 3/4 of the way through, tattooed a great big X over it, and started again further down the back. Yeah, it was memorable. Story 20. I have the words Caesar salad, 4DA boys, howdy, hash free tink tink, and whiskey D asterisk C cake, with an arrow pointing towards my you-know-what tattooed on my thigh among many other terrible tattoos. Let's just say I've been sober for 5 years and make better decisions these days. Story 21. Coworker said she, her brother, and some friends all got drunk and gave themselves tattoos. Her brother got a smiley face done around his nipple so the nipple looked like its nose. I haven't seen it, but it certainly was the dumbest story I've heard. Story 22. I knew a guy who had a Mount Rushmore-like tattoo on his upper back that was of who he called his top 4 ex-girlfriends, and he said why each of them were amongst his top 4 choices. On top of it, he had the Statue of Liberty on one of his calves that had the face of an ex of his, and the other calf what looked like the Lincoln Memorial statue, only you guessed it, it was an X. Story 23. Right before I left the small Midwestern town I grew up in, a dude fresh out of prison opened up a tattoo parlor, and it was obvious he learned how to do the job in the clink. Suddenly there were dozens of people walking around town with god-awful looking tattoos, only going to his shop because it was cheap. The worst was my best friend's older brother that got a rat tattooed on his neck, only the rat ended up looking more like a beaver. Story 24. While dumb, it was also one of my favorite ones ever. An old friend of mine had a friend who was an apprentice tattoo artist, and he told any of his friends that he would tattoo something on them as long as he chose what it was, and they could choose the location and size. She went to him and said she wanted one her hip, about the size of her hand, and to go at it. The first session he did all of the line work, and it was basically an anthropomorphic burger, french fries, and shake, but not like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but VeggieTales style. She went back a few weeks later and he did the coloring and finished it off. The first time you see it, you say, "What the fuck?" But the longer you see it, the more you appreciate the artistry and how funny it is. Story 25. Me, my wife, and a couple of her friends were talking about lame tattoos one of these days. The girl said some rough stuff about tramp stamps and some other cliche tattoos, and I said, "Those infinite tattoos are awful." The room went dead silent. After a second, the girl said, "I have one, but I did it because of my father, as a representation of the infinite love we have for each other." I just mumbled some bullshit excuse and left the room for a while. The story 26. While on a weekend trip to LA with a friend, he absolutely insists that he has to get a pair of tattoos, but he won't make an appointment, says he will only do it on a walk-in basis. WTF? Finally, he finds a place in West Hollywood that is acceptable. I'm left languishing in Barney's Beanery, actually worthwhile, for 4 hours. Finally, he pays the guy $400 cash and is done. Okay, he now has tattoos of a door hinge on each arm on the inside of the elbow joints. WTF? Why? I saw an old sailor with the same tattoos many years ago. It gets worse. It turns out that the $400 that Hinge Boy spent on the tattoos was his half of the motel bill. And without warning, my credit card has been shut down. So there we are in LA, with no live credit card, and now not enough cash at a motel that will not accept a check. Hinge Boy's response when I asked him why he fucked me over, "I didn't think you'd mind." WTF. Story 27. Me, I'm the problem, it's me. My wife and I bought a tattoo gun and spent a significant amount of time tattooing each other. Both of us have zero artistic talent. Highlights include a tiny penis on my hip bone, Lord Nermal flipping the bird on my ankle, a very poorly drawn frangipani on my forearm, and a list of my animals' birthdays down the side on my thigh. Except we have a lot of animals and we got bored halfway through, so the list is incomplete. We had the bright idea to bring the tattoo gun to my brother-in-law's wedding, where after a significant amount of whiskey, my other brother-in-law tattooed the postcode of where we met on my arm. Mine looks okay. I tattooed it on him too and forgot how to do a 9, which now looks like a G. I am completely screwed if I ever get divorced. Story 28. Edit. My brothers and I a few years ago while at beach in our home country saw a guy who had to be a tourist with Viking runes tattoos on his back. And when we asked what does the tattoo say, he said, "Behold my power, for I am a warrior." We told him, yeah, how do we explain, didn't do your rune homework, right? You picked the wrong lettering. And it instead says, "Behold the puny warrior wannabe." And we showed him the runes he has and showed him pictures of runes we have. And he looked at each rune in each of our photos, seeing my brothers and I were right. Guy said the tattoo artist will be sued for using the wrong runes. Story 29. I don't have an answer to this, but I have a funny anecdote from 30 years ago. This young guy my dad knew from work was helping out my basketball team. He was about 20 years old. He and his friend got tattoos on their arms of Chinese words, something cheesy like family. The two of them come to practice and are showing off their tats to us middle schoolers. My dad, the coach, pulls aside the Korean kid on my team and tells him to walk up to them and ask them why they got asshole tattooed on them. It was fucking hilarious because nobody was in on it except my dad and the Korean kid, and they were freaking out. Story 30. About 30 years ago, I went to a tattoo convention in San Diego. Awards for this and that on Sunday afternoon, and some tweeter girl who weighed about 90 hash, wearing a bikini that was 2 sizes too big and left little to the imagination, and had no filters, was on stage. When it was her turn, she grabbed the mic, turned her back to the audience so we could see the girl's name across her ass, and explained, "That's my name, and it's there because I got tired of guys doing me from behind and calling me the wrong name." True story. Story 31. I was once asked if I could house pet sit for a friend and her then boyfriend while they went to a tattoo convention. When they returned, my friend had a tattoo that ran the length of one leg, featuring Deadpool riding a unicorn, which looked as though it had been drawn by either a 5-year-old or someone under the influence of mind-altering substances. My friend, beaming proudly, asked what I thought of it, and all I could think of was something my mom used to drill into me: if you can't say something nice, say nothing. Story 32. A coworker had a Chinese tattoo on their neck. I thought it was cool and asked them what it meant. They said it translated to lucky dragon. I asked them, is it because that was the year of the animal they were born into? They said it was their favorite Chinese restaurant and thought it looked cool translated into Chinese. Should have lied to me instead. Story 33. I never saw it myself, but I remembered this old story about a chav from Essex who got a cool Chinese tattoo only to be told by some actual Chinese people that it actually said, "At the end of the day, this is an ugly boy." The tattoo parlor had closed down when he went back to confront them. Story 34. I used to work with a young trash bag who put up a post on social media along the lines of, "If I get 1,000 likes, I'll get the logo of Shitty Club XX tattooed on my butt." She did, and she did. The club has been shut for about 10 years. Someone who fell heavily into the hipster prison tat look of a few years ago has "I like snacks" tattooed on their arm. Prison tat style. I don't know why I find it so horrific, but I really would prefer to have a now-defunct nightclub logo on my butt. Story 35. I once met a woman who had permanent marker badly drawn Hello Kitties all over her arms. I commented on it and she said she was young, although she was still young, 21, when we were having this conversation, and dumb and had a tattoo machine. She regretted them so much. It's been about 10 years since then. I hope she managed to get them removed. Just thick black outlines, and all the way up to both elbows, poor thing. Story 36. I saw a guy bowling in a tournament a few weeks ago who had a guy pushing a lawnmower tattooed on the back of his head. My husband was confused why he had the tattoo until I told him to look at his hairline. It was actually kind of funny. As far as dumb tattoos, I think the ones that look like random doodling look messy and disorganized. Story 37. My eldest brother, 37 years old, got a tattoo of his GF name. They are no longer together, but I knew at the time they would not last since their relationship was known to be very toxic. It's just not a wise decision to get someone's name tatted on your body, unless it's your child's name, I guess, as I believe that would be more sentimental. Story 38. Having worked in kitchens and youth corrections, I've seen some really weird tattoos. Random squiggles to a random number to stick people all, because kids and cooks shouldn't have access to tattoo guns because they'll draw random things on themselves literally just for attention. Story 39. I've seen some pretty unique tattoos over the years, but one that stands out is someone who had "no regrets" tattooed across their chest, spelling regrets wrong. It's a classic example of irony and a reminder of how important it is to double-check everything before committing to ink. That said, everyone's taste is different, and what might seem silly to one person can hold deep personal meaning for someone else. Story 40. I work the front desk at a tiny reproductive health clinic in the South. We have a regular patient with a huge Illuminati symbol tattooed on her chest right under her neck. It has the eye in the middle and everything, except it's lopsided so it comes to a slanted point and has a bunch of squiggly lines snaking up from it. In my head, I always interpret them as stink lines like in Diary of a Wimpy Kid,